In the 2020 NBA Draft, with the 4th overall pick, the Chicago Bulls selected Patrick Williams, a 6'8", 225-pound forward with a 6'9" wingspan who can defend multiple positions, score in a variety of ways, and who just does a lot of things that contribute to winning basketball. Basically, Chicago selected Williams despite him coming off the bench for the entirety of his games in Florida State. And so, fast forward to the 2021 NBA Draft, I think it shouldn't really have been that surprising when the Toronto Raptors, who had the 4th overall pick as well, went on to select a guy who also mostly came off the bench for Florida State, who even has better physical tools at 6'9" with a 7'3" wingspan, and who actually even put up more well-rounded stats in college, who of course comes in the form of versatile forward Scottie Barnes. Well, I personally had Barnes going to Toronto 4th overall in the channel's official mock draft, but as expected, there were quite a number of people who didn't agree with me, and when the Raptors ultimately picked Barnes, a lot of fans also suggested that Toronto should have drafted a supposedly more NBA-ready player in Jalen Suggs instead. Well, no disrespect to Suggs, as he's definitely a tough, hard-nosed young player who definitely has so much star potential, but if any, I think the 2021 playoffs have shown us why the search for versatile wing players comes first in today's NBA before anything else. I mean, every team definitely needs a talented wing player who's got great size, positional versatility, and who can also create plays for others on the court. So in this case, I think you just gotta appreciate how Masai, Ujiri, and the Raptors front office ultimately decided to go with a guy who actually fits that description quite well with Scottie Barnes. So what's good guys, it's Hero Balls here, and in this video, I'll give my early impressions of Scottie Barnes' NBA game, and we'll talk about why the combination of great size, high motor, defensive ability, and advanced basketball IQ that he currently displays on the court actually puts him right on track to become the next franchise star for the Toronto Raptors. But before we move on, if you guys happen to enjoy this video, please don't forget to hit that like button, as it definitely helps the channel a lot. It only takes a second of your time, but it would be much appreciated. So let's get to it. First of all, for a guy who was supposed to be terrible on offense, as scouts have put it, you can say that Scottie Barnes is actually doing quite well early on at the NBA level, as he currently ranks 2nd among all rookies in scoring, as he's averaging 16.8 points on a highly efficient 56% shooting clip after his first 4 NBA games. But I think this isn't supposed to be surprising at all, cause despite being a player whose strength mainly lies on running the floor in transition, Barnes actually played for a relatively slow-paced Florida State team, and yet he still managed to put up a solid 23.8 points per 100 possessions in college, which he mostly accomplished by using his length and size to get to the rim, which is where he scored most of his points back then. And so far, you can say that the same scoring trend has continued at the NBA level, cause if you look at his shot distribution chart so far, you'll see that most of his attempts and conversions are highly concentrated around the paint, wherein he's actually been very efficient, as he's shooting a ridiculous 70% within 3 feet of the rim, and also an excellent 61.5% within 3 to 10 feet of the basket. Well, so far, most of these interior shots actually come from drop-offs or from him hustling on the offensive glass, which is great, but I think for a guy who's expected to be a future offensive hub for the Raptors, you definitely want Barnes to be able to create more situations off the bounce and to be able to leverage his size and his long strides more when attacking the rim. And the good thing is, although in a very small sample size, Barnes is already showing that kind of ability this early in his NBA career. Just like in this clip, after receiving the ball from the top of the key facing Luka Doncic's defense, he immediately recognizes the mismatch and he simply goes downhill, creating a driving lane for himself as he finishes off with a dunk. And here, after receiving the ball in the high post, as he recognizes the open interior space, he backs Patrick Williams up with 2 dribbles and he spins before finishing off with a one-handed flush. So as you can see, in those kinds of situations wherein the defense gives him enough space to operate, you can just see how Barnes is able to leverage his elite physical tools. I mean, sure, he's not creating a lot of those kinds of shots by himself yet, but the thing is, the Raptors' current spacing isn't making things easier for him either, as Toronto only ranks 28 in the league in 3-point percentage, just ahead of OKC and Detroit as of the moment. But just imagine the amount of space that Barnes will be given to attack once the Raptors start shooting at a significantly better rate from 3, which should just pull defenses further away from the paint. Yeah, I mean, sure, he's still far from being a Giannis type of rim attacker at this point, cause even though he has an outstanding 39.5-inch vertical, I think Barnes still hasn't developed that kind of elite bounce and verticality that you want a 6'9" guy to have in order to finish around quicker and stronger defenders when he drives down downhill, which is more than fine since he'll definitely get better with it over time once he develops his strength and body control a little bit more. But you can just definitely see that the potential for Barnes to be a one-man wrecking crew in the future is already there. But while he's not quite there yet, the good thing is Barnes has also displayed the ability to manufacture shots at around floater range, which is within 10 to 12 feet of the basket, which are the types of shots that he'd be able to use during those situations when the defense doesn't afford him the space to attack the rim. Just like in this clip, watch how the size of Barnes allows him to constantly back Tatum down, and once he gets to his spot, his length allows him to create just the right amount of separation to hit the mid-range jumper with a hand on his face. And again here, as he gets the ball, you can just see him almost preparing to attack Luka Doncic's defense, but once he notices Porzingis ready to help, he quickly gathers the ball instead as he hits the nice floater. I mean, it's also in these kinds of situations wherein you can see how Barnes is just able to use his high basketball IQ in terms of reading the floor on offense. And with that ability to read the floor at a high level, Barnes has already displayed his remarkable playmaking chops early in the season. I mean, Toronto pretty much deploys him already as a playmaker in the high post, wherein his vision and passing accuracy allows him to find cutters around the rim or to make skip passes to open shooters in the half court, which he does really well. But without a doubt, his playmaking brilliance is just highlighted even more once he's on the open floor. Just like here, straight from grabbing the rebound, Barnes sprints down with the ball with his eyes up, then he throws the one-handed bullet pass intended for Khem Birch, but is eventually picked up by OG for the easy dunk. I mean, for a guy his size to dish out that kind of one-handed pass straight off the dribble is just kinda impressive, especially for a rookie. And in this clip, once again coming off a rebound, Barnes immediately surveys the floor, then he picks up his dribble just a little bit to pressure the defense before dishing out the no-look pass to Boucher with his offhand. So as you can see, Barnes obviously came into the league already having a pretty developed court vision and playmaking ability, which should definitely work to his advantage as a potential long-term point forward for the Raptors. Cause it's just that we've been talking about Cade Cunningham being the best playmaker of the 2021 draft class for so long, which he might actually be, but I mean, Scottie Barnes' numbers of 4.1 assists per game and his 31.6 assist percentage in college actually fared better than Cunningham's numbers, despite Barnes playing significantly lesser minutes and despite him mostly coming off the bench. So could we actually say that he's a better playmaker than Cunningham at this point, or that he's going to be a full-time point guard in the future? Well, I think that could be a legitimate argument, but still I think the main reason why Barnes was never really going to be seen as an actual ready-made NBA point guard is because of his lack of a reliable outside shot. And getting his three-pointer to fall is definitely going to be the goal for Barnes if he really wants to utilize his playmaking in the NBA, cause being a decent outside shooter is the surest way for defenders to close out on him, which would also be the most effective way for him to get his teammates open shots. Well, the thing is, after his first 4 NBA games, he's only made a poor 16.7% of all his three-point attempts, but it's still so early in his NBA career, and if any, he's actually made 50% of all his mid-range shots outside the paint so far, which shows that he has actual range, and has also been shooting an excellent 71% from the free throw line, which shows that he knows how to be accurate. And those kinds of things are usually seen as indicators when it comes to a player's future development as a shooter, which means Barnes could very well end up as a real perimeter weapon soon. But with all the questions that come with his offensive game, the opposite could definitely be said with his defense. While we already know that Barnes can defend guards, wings, and even some bigs, with his size allowing him to cover a lot of ground, but what I really like with what I've seen so far is how his length and his actual effort on defense has directly translated into some great offensive plays for Toronto. Just like in this clip, watch how Barnes picks up Jason Tatum. He's ready to defend the switch as Al Horford fakes a handoff, but is able to immediately recover towards Tatum as he squares up for the block. But it doesn't end there, as Barnes continues to run the open floor in transition up until Precious Achiuwa delivers the bounce pass to him for the easy dunk. And here, Barnes picks up Tyrese Maxey in center court, but then he quickly sprints towards Georges Niang, squares up, then blocks his shot. But again, he doesn't stop there. He continues to run the open floor to give additional pressure to the transition defense, which ultimately helps Achiuwa finish the fast break. I mean, you just got to love the kind of energy and constant activity that Barnes brings in the defensive end, which is also reflected by his 8.5 rebound per game average, which currently leads all rookies. And it's also worth noting that 14 out of the 41 rebounds he's grabbed so far have come from the offensive glass, which means offensive rebounds currently occupy 41% of his total rebounding output, which totally shows the kind of hustle and energy that Scottie Barnes brings on the floor. But with all that said, Scottie Barnes' game is still definitely a work in progress. You probably want him to be a reliable 3-point shooter and to be a more creative shot maker in the future. But I mean, even Kawhi Leonard and Giannis, who are often seen as his prototypes, didn't come into the league already having a flawless jumper or already having the ability to exploit any kind of mismatch. So I think the point is, for a guy like Barnes who can create plays like a point guard, who has the body of a wing and who has the wingspan of a center, who's also gifted with great motor, elite defensive skill, and the basketball IQ needed to slow the game down in the long run, I think the probability of failure is just really small, and it just might be a matter of time before those flashes of superstardom start to come out for him. So what do you guys think about Scottie Barnes? Does he really have the makings of a franchise player? Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you're new to the channel and if you actually enjoy content like this, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.